Hey guys, it's Eric here. Just as a quick disclaimer, I do realize that this video is longer than the ones that I normally make, but I think it'll be really interesting for all of you guys who are listening. It's about Iran, and as we all know, there's not that much information about this country. I think it'll be really interesting for you guys to listen to, as it was for me. I do recommend to turn captions on because of the accent, and I'm sorry about the video quality. The Zoom call Wi-Fi wasn't that good, sadly. Either way, I hope you guys always do your own research, keep an open mind, but also make sure to understand that this is our personal opinion and enjoy the video. All right, guys, welcome back. This is the fourth episode of the Pandemic Post, and I'm very excited to introduce you guys a very special guest today. Here we have Mr. Faramars from Iran. Hello, please introduce yourself.
Oh, hi, how you doing? My name is Paramars Beheshti, and I'm talking to you from Tehran, Iran.
Yes. So if you've watched my previous episodes, they've been in fairly, you know a lot about these countries. So let's say USA, the UAE, like Dubai, right, and South Korea. I felt like Iran is definitely one of the most special places that a lot of us might not know about because of the media around the world today. So I thought it'd be a great opportunity for a lot of us to kind of get an inside look into how Iran might be functioning nowadays. So just as a general question, could you give us like a brief kind of timeline of generally when this coronavirus started, what the first kind of reactions were, and how it's led up till nowadays?
All right, hi. First of all, thank you for giving me the opportunity to bring a bit of actual news from Iran because, as you mentioned, is either unheard or when I look at the mainstream media, I see matter has been extremely politicized. So for people who are not familiar with Iran and Iranians, it's very hard to get an actual picture of the situation. So going back to your question, I think Iran was one of the first countries where once we started hearing about this COVID-19, we started also to hearing about people being affected. And I don't know the exact date, but must be around 4 or 5 months ago when suddenly it became, national news. And unfortunately, since I follow the news, not just the Iranian situation, but I look at also the news of their countries. A very sad event that I noticed immediately was this extremely politicization of the corona, the COVID-19, and especially the news. There was a time where every country, when they were coming out and declaring that they have discovered COVID-19 in their own turf, Iran was being blamed as a country where people who were sick had traveled from, they were either Iranians or had traveled from Iran. And this got farcical because specifically, I can tell you two countries, Australia and Canada, very publicly, they declared, oh, our first cases were people who had traveled from Iran. And this was on the news all over, CNN, BBC. But when in actual fact, the truth came out, both countries, Australia and Canada, apologized to the Iranian government because this was not the news. But this part of the story was never mentioned in the news. And so, in fact, later the truth came out and it became known that the first country where outside China, the COVID-19 had its first victim was in fact the United Arab Emirates or Dubai specifically or United Arab Emirates. And of course, even back then they said there was a gentleman who had traveled back from China. So this was the very start of the matter, which was a bit upsetting because, this is a world problem. And in an ideal world would require a genuine cooperation among all countries. But soon it was this politicization of it. which many people who were following the news overseas got a bit upset. But anyway, the matter was so big that issues like that became not even tertiary, and they basically were forgotten. So Iran was hit by the COVID-19, and initially, like most other nations, there was a general panic, mainly from government sides, because many countries were not ready to with the scale of the situation, and Iran was one of like many other people. So initially, the matter was quite moving very fast and affecting a lot of people. But soon, with the more people got to know and countries got to know and learn about this matter, they started to get hold of the situation. And this happened in Iran too. Whereas initially we had a great number of deaths and people affected, um, also due, I would say, mainly to the fact that people themselves were not cautious about it. There was an immediate spread in many regions, but slowly, situation got a bit more under control, to the point that the number of deaths started to stabilize. And this was within 3 months of the initial shock. To the point that there was a positive mood that started replacing the closed guard. Unfortunately, then the second wave came. And so I don't want to rush ahead of myself now, but this was the initial picture that, caused a lot of people to get sick, to get the symptoms. Many people lost their lives, unfortunately. But things, are much better now. In the sense that people started to educate themselves and learn a bit more how to cope and live in this situation.
Yeah. So I've also realized that, as you mentioned, the cases did get a lot better for Iran, but still the media doesn't seem to mention it very often. Like there was a lot of news about how the Iranian government was unable to cope with this issue, and then generally as USA got worse and other countries might have gotten better, I find that I actually haven't seen much news about these countries recovering from these actual cases. So it is very obvious that the politicization is extremely prevalent, especially in these kind of Western media, whenever they want to kind of show a particular message.
A very positive point, despite the fact that Iran has been under this tremendous pressure from, I think now it's 13 years of American sanctions, which has gone to all aspects of our Iranian society, the economy. It's caused a tremendous negative impact on people's life. Despite that, some that people don't know is actually Iran has a universal health coverage system that covers all the population. And this is where, for instance, the difference came with United States. America being a much more powerful and wealthy nation, in actual fact, millions upon millions of people don't have the basic healthcare provided by the government. Where in Iran, for instance, at the first sign of any symptom, not just COVID, you could, with whatever income you have, as long as you are registered with the health authorities, you could approach any hospital and get a free medical service. This, for instance, in a country like America is not available. For what I know, millions of people don't have Medicare. And therefore, many people are even scared to approach any health facilities because of the huge costs that, that comes along with this. In Iran, is different. People having this universal health provided by the government, they get treatment at a much faster and easier rate than, again, comparing to United States. Now, I'm not familiar with the other countries, but, as a point of reference, I would say USA because, it seems that the past so many decades is always Iran and America. So, I'm simply comparing ourselves with the people with lower income in America. I would say a poor man is in a much better situation here. And as I said, another point people might know, for the nation that we are, the whole health system is quite functional. And despite the fact that we might need investment in many areas, what is existing is pretty good, actually. And obviously, if you are living in a small city, with 10 or 15,000 people population, you might not get the same facilities as other big cities. But I would say on a regional level, I think we have 23 or 24 regions. On a regional levels, all the regions have hospitals that more or less can cope with the situation.
Yeah.
Obviously, this COVID came like an avalanche, and it caused a great shock. So there is always, if you listen to the government, they talk about how good they are controlling it. People are skeptical. Some people have the habit of saying, "Oh no, the government is always lying." Now, I can't say who's right and who's wrong. But my own scale for judging the situation is I look around myself. And the past 6 or 7 months, despite all the news that is COVID is everywhere, every country, every news station, the first news is related to COVID and how many deaths and how many affected. I personally, over the past 6 or 7 months, I've had only 7 cases around me, people I know. Out of these 7 cases, one person passed away.
I see.
6 others got full recovery, including a lady that was that she is around 73 years old. And this person decided actually to go and self-isolate in the house rather than approach the hospitals. Because that's an area where people have a lot of doubts. Entering a hospital facility, many people are not keen because they have this idea of, viruses and diseases around in the air. But going back to the question, as I said, I personally know of 7 cases, 1 death, and 7 people got over the COVID-19,
Yes.
fortunately. So I know this could be coincident, but at least for my experience, the disease has been under control.
Yeah.
And it's not like I had more deaths around me. That's the situation. But that's, as I said, is simply my personal, it could be a circle of maybe 200 or 300 people around me that I know, family of friends and stuff like that. Fortunately, I haven't heard more, negative news.
Would you say that Have the regulations they've put in, has it affected your daily life? Has it been difficult to really do anything
Yeah.
differently?
Yeah, look, obviously, like many other places, there were regulations in place. However, enforcement wasn't as extreme
Hmm.
as, for instance, in Melbourne, where policemen have been dragging, pregnant women out of their cars and or beating people or putting them in jail. You know, many public institutions obviously were closed down. Many educational institute, private schools were closed down. Uh, Up to 2 months ago, there was a complete shutdown of all places like restaurants and coffee shops and stuff.
Yes.
Um, and there was this daily reminder to wear masks and stuff like that. But it were now when you go out on the street, you see a lot of people wearing masks because first of all, many shops they don't serve you if you go without mask. Many shops, most of the shops or commercial enterprises, they have big signs. You are not allowed to enter without a mask. But you will never see a case where your car is stopped by the cops and they never do stuff like that. It's been mainly a personal choice, and I must say that I'm glad to see that a lot of people do follow this basic regulation. But I am also glad, on the other hand, that there is not this heavy-handed response by the enforcing agencies like the police, stuff like that.
So
So
it's a good
yeah,
balance.
it has a yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Well, would you say most people are happy with how it is right now, like the current situation? Are they happy with how it's progressed and how it's been solved generally?
No, look, the biggest problem with COVID, I think, of course, beyond the health factor, is the economic factor. I personally am wondering what is going to happen next year, because while we are now going on through these things, people still have some savings. They still can carry on. But I wonder in 6 7 months, where people have run finished all their savings, or all the business people who had those restaurants and coffee shops and all those businesses who have been affected, that will have a repercussion that is too soon to judge now. I
Hmm.
think the force and the impact of the negative impact of this side of the COVID-19, unfortunately, we still have to wait, to see in the near future how it's going to be, because yeah, part of the economy was shut down.
Hmm.
And this has been going on for many months now. Obviously, certain enterprises kept functioning, but with reduced capacity. And so, yeah, I would expect that it will have a great negative impact
Yeah,
on the economy.
and
So
definitely,
it's change action. Yeah.
yeah, and definitely the U.S. sanctions for like years now, for very long time. It makes it just much more harder to come back, right? The resources that the country's getting is very limited compared to what they could be getting.
Yeah, I mean, especially since Trump has come up, because first of all, we've had these sanctions for 13 or 14 years, but in 2015, the world celebrated the agreement that we had with the world community. And there was a great hope and positive mood in the air that finally this pressure was being removed from the lid, and really made a difference. There was a window of a year and a half that really things, economy was growing at the rate of 5 or 6%. There was immense positive hope that, all the forecasts were predicting economical growth of at least 5 or 6% for, I don't know, mid-term term of at least 5, 10 years. There was a great hope. But then, Trump came and unilaterally, broke this agreement, which was basically signed by the world community, and reimpose what are really now illegal sanctions. Because, as I said, there was an agreement. The Iranian government obeyed by the points in the agreement, and Trump did not have any reason to do that. However, the biggest problem for the Iranian economy is the fact that we are cut off the world banking system.
Yeah.
And this is our biggest problem as far as the nation is concerned, as far as the government and the country is concerned. We were never allowed to join back the banking family worldwide. And since Trump has came up, basically this one point, which was supposed to be the main positive outcome for Iran, was taken away from us. And unfortunately, the other partners in this agreement, which were the European countries, stood by silently and they didn't do anything. Basically, they also were forced by America to break the agreement, which is very sad. As I said, one part of this whole agreement was the Iranian government. They obeyed by the rules. They played by the rules of the game, but we were not given what it was supposed to be our, main benefit. And this is going on still. We are still unable to, to be part of the world commerce. It's crazy. I am unable to send even $1 if I have a family in distress somewhere, anywhere in the world. Even for emergency matters. This is crazy. This is absolutely unfair. Why? Because ultimately it's the people, it's the ordinary people that suffer. Imagine what hardship they're going through month after month in order just to get, the money for their survivors. Similarly, is on the other way. There are many people, many elder parents who live in Iran and who were depending on, the money sent from overseas. They are unable to get, their livelihood depends on this basically assistance coming from overseas. So, unfortunately, as usual, who pays the heaviest price is the ordinary people.
Yes. And I think for a lot of the people that might be watching, it's very different what you might be seeing right here, because it's, first of all, the news you see is very focused from these Western sides, and it's important to get a very essential perspective, because essentially I'm hearing that Iran's been left out of the conversation. They've been pushed away, and it's very difficult for many people to learn about this. So I think for all of the people, obviously do your own research, right? Obviously see what you can find on your own. But it's very important to realize that many of the news and information that you get throughout on a daily basis always has a fundamental hidden motivation. And I think everyone needs to recognize that regardless of any side that you might be on.
Look, I think the most important thing is for Trump to be, escorted out of the White House, because frankly, we might not hear the French Prime Minister or Angela Merkel talking about publicly, but I think, he's biting everyone. So definitely for us in Iran, the greatest hope is that, Trump is removed. And if he's not removed, okay, half of for his term is gone already. Even if in November he gets reelected, we have to be ready for another 4 years of harsher reactions from him, because obviously, if he gets reelected, he in his head he thinks that he's got a seal of approval, and he might impose worst surprises for everyone. So anyway, that's an American matter. It's up to them how they want to react on November. But personally, a lot of people hope that he's not reelected, and I think that will make a change, because despite the Iranian government not talking about publicly, I think deep down, when they are in their private quarters, they wouldn't mind again another situation where when Obama was in power and there was a line of communication. Uh, but you ask them publicly, they will never admit that. It will be that harsh, outer look. Yeah. And for us as an ordinary Iranian, yeah, we really hope that Trump is not reelected, not for any political reason or preferential, specific reasons, but simply because when you have a hardliner in Washington, unfortunately, we get a hardliner or a more hardliner sets of internal politics in Iran too. So this is the situation. The worse they act, the harder things become for us on our day-to-day, living.
Yep. And definitely,
Yeah.
I agree. Thank you so much for all the amazing info you've given us. I hope that everyone watching takes this information into heart, at least consider it, because the most important thing is to not just blindly follow whatever you might be reading or listening. So thank you very much once again, Mr. Farmaz. Thank you for coming today.
Hey, thanks a lot for talking to me. Yeah, yeah. And I hope that, people start to think for themselves rather than just having an ear that gets some information blasted by the television set. The world is, people are all the same. You get good and bad everywhere. So, I don't believe in saying that an entire nation is made of good and bad. So you get a mixed bag everywhere. But ordinary people are the one ultimately paying the price for these political games. And, that's, I wish there was a way to finish that. But unfortunately, this is not going to be. Anyway, nice talking to you.
Yep. Thank you so much.
All right. Cheers.
Hey guys, it's Eric here. I'm doing my editing right now, and once again, thank you so much for watching the entire video. I hope it was just as interesting to you as it was for me. If you enjoyed it, make sure to like and subscribe. Of course, if you have any suggestions and comments, please leave them down in the comment section below. A lot of you guys might have come here through the ads that I've posted on YouTube. The main goal of this channel is to really just spread this kind of educational podcast to as many people as I can show, because I think especially this episode was really interesting. Of course, you can look at my other content. There's a lot of fun stuff there as well. And if you really enjoyed it and you think other people might like it, share with other people. I'd really appreciate it. And thank you so much once again.